Welcome everybody, my name is 𝐏𝐨𝐬𝐬𝐬 and this is the Market Meditations podcast. We chat with fascinating people from around the world to extract mindsets, routines, stories and habits to help you build richer lives. Today's guest, Camila Russo, has spent 8 years at Bloomberg covering financial markets before founding one of the largest DeFi platforms, the Defiant. In this episode, we cover Ethereum's success and its competitors. We go into what a beginner needs to use DeFi, our thoughts on DeFi indexes, and we even touch on NFTs. Before we jump into this episode, don't forget that I send hand-picked market news, insights, and education to over 6,000 traders and investors 3 times a week. To get access to this, all you have to do is sign up to 𝐿𝐻𝐴𝐾.substack.com. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we have a very knowledgeable guest on the space of DeFi. You know, it's a topic we've been exploring a lot recently on the podcast, and I am honored to be joined by Camila. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course, a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Honestly, it's incredible getting so many knowledgeable people on the space of DeFi onto the show, and you are actually a very popular content creator in the cryptocurrency space, specifically educational content through your newsletter, The Defiant, and you've written a book as well, which is incredible, The Infinite Machine, which our listeners should definitely check out. Now, I've seen a lot of podcasts where people ask you about Ethereum from the book, but something which I was quite curious about is when writing the book, what insights did you gain about Vitalik and what he specifically did that you think made Ethereum a success?
Oh, interesting. About Vitalik, well, I guess like the first thing that really catches anyone's attention was just how young he was when he came up with everything. With this idea of a generalized platform for decentralized applications. He was just 19 when he wrote the Ethereum white paper. So obviously, you know, a very talented, extremely smart um, person behind at least a foundation of this project. And then next, it was really impressive to see the really how he handled the very difficult challenges and decisions he had to make along the way in the kind of very early years of Ethereum, the first years of Ethereum since the white paper. Um, it was just Vitalik and a group of other co-founders that was supporting him in achieving this dream. Um, it's not like today where the community is actually decentralized and there's thousands of developers building this thing. Before, it was a lot more centralized around this group of entrepreneurs and developers and marketers building Ethereum. And so a lot of the decisions really came down to just Vitalik. And again, he was extremely young, and making all these decisions that would change the lives of the people around him. That, you know, these, like, the co-founders of Ethereum really dropped everything to join Vitalik in this kind of crusade. They kind of broke up with girlfriends, they gave away pets, they left jobs, like literally, they dropped everything to follow Vitalik to Zug in Switzerland, where they like started building Ethereum. And so like their lives like literally depended on him. And the insight I got is that for at least like seeing the decisions he made for Vitalik, the most important thing, like his only agenda was seeing Ethereum succeed. Like he didn't have any like particular loyalties to anyone in the co-founding group or anything else really. Like he was just like motivated by this idea of a decentralized nonprofit, like foundation driven um protocol. And so like decisions like telling you know, angering a group of co-founders like that he just did that, changing people from like foundation management. He did that too. And like, yeah, the main driver of that was seeing Ethereum succeed. So yeah, I was really impressed by that, like how mature he was, and like his like vision at such a young age.
That blows my mind. I think most 19-year-olds, or most people listening to this will be thinking back to when they were 19 and say, I could absolutely not have done that. The amount of conviction, confidence in yourself, emotional maturity required, and also a certain level of obsession, it sounds like. Just one vision and goal above everything else, which seems to people gravitate towards that sort of thing. We've had a lot of founders on this show, and when you have that one higher purpose, which you put above even yourself, it makes it very easy for people to rally behind you.
Exactly. I think that's what people saw in Vitalik, and the fact that they saw him as this like very kind of pure being, like almost like people like to like call him an alien, and I know he doesn't like that, but it's just this idea of this like non-human, person. That, I mean, that doesn't make sense, but like
No,
non-human being, right?
it does make sense. Absolutely. Like
Yeah.
an alien, something above, like we said, a higher purpose, something above an alien. It's not like the normal higher purpose, but it does put something in context.
Yeah, so like for Bitcoin, I think like Satoshi is the perfect founder, because he is anonymous. He hasn't like he didn't enrich himself from his creation. Like the bitcoins he mined are still there in the same wallet, and so this also has like a very kind of divine effect behind Bitcoin. So I think that's kind of the most perfect foundation story and founder story that you can have behind the decentralized protocol. But I think second best is someone like Vitalik, who you just like see from his actions that he's not kind of driven by anything else than the success of Ethereum. Like he, I don't know, he it like you get the sense that he doesn't have any like secondary agenda, and yeah, that makes people trust him and just follow him and like support him on this project.
Did you learn anything while doing this research and writing the book that you've applied to your own business ventures that you found really helpful?
Oh, that's interesting. Um, well, I think the the idea that how complicated it is to deal with too many people leading a project in the very early stages. Um, and I think that confirmed the same idea I had seen in other startups and ventures, that people are difficult, and when you have co-founders, and especially when you have many co-founders, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have disagreements and fights over the product or personalities or whatever. Like egos obviously get in the way, and I think these disagreements can go from just being kind of like insignificant like nuisance to actually killing a project. Like sometimes drama between founders are actually the reason why startups die. Like they can't get past those problems, and then they never finish the project. So it is like it's not a minor thing to consider, who you're going to be building your startup with. So in that sense, for the Defiant, I started the project by myself, and I think it's not ideal to be a solo founder, but I think in my case, I knew how important it was to have the right person as a co-founder, and it just happened that for me, I just didn't have the right person that I could trust with that high of a role. So for me, I just kept building the Defiant on my own, rather than, I know that some startup founders go out of their way to find the founding team and they even kind of like go to like talent marketplaces to find like a co-founder. They may delay starting the project, uh, reaching out to old friends or to colleagues or whoever. Um, but I think like to me, it just didn't feel right to just like, if it just like wasn't the case that this person was there and was right, then I just thought, it's better to just do it myself than be than have kind of the wrong partner. And I think, yeah, the Ethereum story certainly kind of backs that idea.
Well, it's so interesting that you focus on co-founders, because we've had a lot of people talk about the importance of having the right team and hiring the right people, but not so much focusing on the right co-founders, and not only the right co-founders, but also how it's almost better if you have one party in charge leading, and then co-founders can be an issue. And I guess in the crypto space, given it's such a new industry, there's so many startups coming and going and coming and going, that we just get firsthand experience to all the things that could go wrong. And what made Defiant a success then? Because it is a fantastic, thriving newsletter, a huge one in the space right now, one of the most well respected. So congratulations on that. What do you think has made it the success it is today?
Well, I mean, first, thank you so much for that. I'm super proud of what I built with my team, and I think, just to preface, I think you're absolutely right that the team is very important. Like, I wouldn't want to imply that I built a Defiant by myself, or that like a team isn't needed. But I think there's like a difference between the team and contributors and employees, and someone actually kind of uh, owning the company together with you and having the same level of responsibility. So, but I think, yeah, like I found hiring is the like most difficult part of like building a company, and the talent is the most important thing, and having the right team on board, for sure. Um, what what I think has made the Defiant successful is, I don't know, this might sound like cliche, but like right place, right time, maybe. Um, because I was writing The Infinite Machine, the book on the history of Ethereum, at the time when DeFi was just emerging. Like, I was writing the book in 2018 and 2019. um, MakerDAO launched DAI in December of 2017, and that's just like around the time when I was pitching my book to publishers. And so I saw DeFi emerge as I was researching my book. And I also saw that nobody was really covering the space very well. And because I was researching for the Infinite Machine, I was really spending all my time in the Ethereum community. And I was going to all the conferences and all the hackathons. So that was a very privileged position to be at, because and everyone kind of sitting on the sidelines and looking at Ethereum from the outside in, what the first thing they saw was the declining price chart. So you saw ETH going from 1,400 to $90 in the span of those 2 years. So I mean, you wouldn't like, it wouldn't have been outrageous to think this project is over, like there's nothing happening here. But I was actually seeing the opposite, from spending my time at hackathons, and just seeing that actual value was being built on Ethereum. Like, I was just seeing all the energy around it, like how there were every time there were more developers at these conferences and hackathons, there were more projects. And then DeFi just started kind of emerging. And to me, it was mind blowing that it was basically the financial system being built from the ground up, and like being reinvented on blockchain technology. And it was just creating this improved way to handle money, this network that's global, that's made to carry value, that's open, that actually increases access to financial services. So it's really kind of like a very revolutionary thing that was happening. And so to me, that was very exciting. Yeah.
Because you've just reminded, we had a guest on recently. This episode hasn't been released yet, but he was talking about the best way to find projects to invest in right now in the space is to really spend a lot of time in Telegram groups, Discords, and see what's going on in the inner
Hmm.
communities. It sounds like you were doing a similar thing, almost unintentionally, just researching for your book by being
Yeah.
in the trenches. Did that make you make investment or trading decisions based off of that information?
So I think reporters are the worst investors because um, we are, at least I was trained to like never buy anything related to what I'm covering or like writing about. So um, I was at Bloomberg at that time and I didn't own a single ETH. I didn't own any like token, anything. So no, I didn't make like all of my research was purely for my book and for like my own reporting. It like wasn't for investment. But anyway, so because I saw this kind of like revolutionary thing emerging, and at the same time I saw that nobody was covering it, like of course like mainstream media wasn't covering it. And even crypto media wasn't paying much attention to DeFi either. And there weren't even DeFi focused newsletters at the time, 2019. So I just saw like a really great opportunity for me. Like I had the experience of being at Bloomberg. I was a markets reporter there for 8 years. Like it's what I do. Like I write about markets. And at the same time, I had kind of the knowledge of like researching Ethereum for 2 years. So I thought, I'm in a good position to cover decentralized finance. So as soon as I turned in the first draft of my book, the 1 week later, I was sending the first email on the Defiant newsletter, and people really responded really really well to it because, like I said, there was nothing kind of focusing on DeFi and what was going on in this space on a day-to-day basis, and there was so much going on. So you needed it was a good tool to have this one place where you can kind of like keep track of everything that was happening. So um yeah, I think I just like filled a need that there was and just kept kind of growing from there.
Yeah, so you said right time, right place, but it also sounds like you took an actionable decision from what you saw while researching your book. So congratulations, credit where credit's due. That was a great decision. Well done. I'm now wondering. So you said journalists are the worst investors. I didn't do it back then. How about now? Because you're deep in the trenches of the DeFi space, constantly trying to stay up to date on every single event happening. Do you get involved in the investing or trading side, or do you still keep that disconnect?
No, definitely keep that disconnect. And I think that's really kind of, besides like taking advantage of like a market and audience need, what makes the Defiant successful is that it's very different from most of the other newsletters and podcasts and uh, just outlets covering DeFi in the space, because I am taking the same standards I had at Bloomberg and applying them to the Defiant. So I think the Defiant is probably the only um, DeFi focused newsletter that's actually journalism. Like there's no investors behind it. We are not kind of promoting our bags or our investments. We're actually covering the space in the way that's we hope the most accurate and most objective and unbiased. Like we don't. There's no kind of hidden agenda. Like our only purpose there is to be the best source of information for DeFi. So I think that's kind of like an important difference with all the other newsletters and podcasts. And yeah, what makes the Defiant successful? Just elevating that quality.
Uh, I can definitely see how not having any investments or use of these products, making it very easy to stay very unbiased and not have any other factors affecting your opinions. But wouldn't you say a large part of the DeFi space is the investing, the buying, the lending on these platforms, borrowing and getting heavily involved in using them? And that could provide unique insight, which might be missing if you're not getting involved in that side of things?
So I think getting involved is different from investing. Like, I definitely try all these like different DeFi platforms. I had an experiment I did last year, the DeFi 10, where I put 100 DAI in 10 different DeFi projects to test them out and to see kind of what the performance was. And I'm constantly using Ethereum and DeFi and testing these things out. So, but the difference is that I'm not putting kind of a significant amount of like my personal wealth in these projects, and I'm not kind of going long any specific token. I will say though, I am long ETH itself, but I think and that's kind of one difference from Bloomberg. But at Bloomberg, yeah, I don't think I would have been able to own ETH at all. But I think we do have some level of like an editorial stand at the Defiant, which is that we are long DeFi, like as an ecosystem. So if we start from there, um, I think it's kind of legitimate to be long the like main layer in which DeFi is being built. So that's kind of where I draw the line. Like I think it's fair to be long the different layer ones where DeFi is happening, but I won't be like betting or investing in any specific DeFi token.
Yeah, okay, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, it's not completely disconnected, but you guys do use it for tests, and you are long Ethereum and the whole space, and sometimes you use an insignificant sum in there, but not heavily invested in any.
Right. I'd say like we've had to discuss this discussion with my reporters. Um, like being long ETH and being long like a basket of tokens with an index like the DeFi Pulse Index or the Synthetics DeFi Index, I think that's fair. Like, you can. We've kind of disclosed that yes, like we are covering this space because we think it's the future of finance. Like we're obviously long DeFi in general, like not like a specific project. So being long DeFi, I think editorially um fine to be long kind of a basket of tokens and ETH itself. And then, if there is DeFi on Polkadot, maybe it'll be fine to own a dot too. But I mean, right now, like owning something like layer one tokens where there's no DeFi ecosystem, I think that's more of like a speculative decision. That's why like
Right.
being long ETH specifically makes sense, but being long other layer ones at this point doesn't make as much sense.
That clears it up a lot. Thank you. So, would you say? So, I'd say as long as you're very clearly disclosed and try to create that sort of barrier, that allows for good journalism. And I'd fully be on the same page there. Now, you said something very interesting, which is the basket approach, which I actually find a little bit difficult in such an early stage space. For example, if we take a look at just crypto early as a whole, back in 2016, holding a basket would have significantly underperformed Bitcoin alone simply because of that high turnover of projects, because the top 10 doesn't stay the top 10 very long. Do you think that's different in the case of DeFi, where the top 10 right now are pretty solidly founded and you expect will continue to grow?
I think so. Obviously, it's very hard to say, but if we look at something like people often compare um, what's happening in DeFi and Ethereum now with the start of the like internet, like Web 2 phase of the internet, so early 2000s. And for like all the for all the startups and dot coms that crashed, there were a few very notable cases where success cases, right? Like Amazon, of course, is kind of the poster child for that. Um, so if you had kind of a basket of like Web 2 stocks in the early 2000s, and if out of the 10 you owned Amazon, you would have done like pretty well for yourself. So I think with Web3, which I think is what's taking off now with Ethereum, that's probably the case. Like if you own a basket of DeFi tokens now, maybe not all of them will succeed in the long run, but there's a good chance that at least one of them or a couple of them will. And maybe it's even maybe the case for that is even stronger with Web3 because of how these dApps are open and community run. So it's just harder for them to die. Because it just makes them similar to just living organisms, where if something is not working out, it's just easier for outside developers to come in and improve things, which doesn't happen with a closed company. So I don't know, like in the case of Maker, if like people are disagreeing with how Maker is done, there's a better chance of it recovering from it with kind of outside community influence and feedback than dying, I think. So yeah, I think that just makes a better case for owning a DeFi basket at the moment.
It certainly does make sense, and if you do happen to grab onto that one which really does kick off, then the return should make up for anything that doesn't do quite as well. Whether it's the most optimal, well, there's a lot of arguments there, because you also mentioned being very long Ethereum. Now, a hot topic right now has been obviously fees are too high, and a lot of competitor platforms are trying to capture that market share from Ethereum. Why do you hold the diversified basket when it comes to DeFi, but not take that approach when it comes to Ethereum? For example, holding Ethereum, Solana, Binance Chain, and any other people who could potentially take that position.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is the reason I mentioned before. Because I'm longing DeFi itself. I would have to own the layer one where DeFi is actually happening. So owning something like Binance, where I don't think it's actually DeFi. So I think Binance Smart Chain is. I mean, I don't think. I mean, it's a fact that it's centralized. It's controlled by the Binance centralized exchange. So to me, that's not really DeFi. And in the case of Solana, maybe the case can be made for that, but I don't think the ecosystem is kind of has taken off yet. So I think that's and like the other layer twos, they are competing for Ethereum DeFi, but again, like I don't see a lot of activity happening there either. So when that changes, yeah, and I think, and the same goes with coverage on the newsletter and on the Defiant. Right now, it's 99% Ethereum focused because that's where the activity is happening. So I think that kind of like pretty much will reflect what I will own personally, or what I will like feel comfortable owning. I think like I'm wired a little bit different than an investor. Like my focus will be on making the best media company, and that like the returns for me are there. Like my subscribers are what I look at much more than like a CoinGecko chart, and then my investments or what I do with my savings come kind of second, and will be they'll be focused on whatever I feel comfortable with from an editorial level. So owning other layer one for me will feel a bit more speculative. Like it won't feel kind of like fundamentally driven as ETH, which is like very clearly kind of taking the lead as the layer, or like the infrastructure layer for DeFi at the moment.
That's a very good argument because it's very, very true. Like 90% plus, like 99% of what is happening in DeFi is happening on Ethereum for now. And we'll see if that changes. And if it does, I'm sure the Defiant will also start covering everything else exciting that's happening there as well.
Yeah, and we were actually criticized for covering Binance Smart Chain. Which yeah, like we received like a lot of flack on Twitter. Um People being like, this is the opposite of DeFi. Like, how can you guys be giving these people attention? But in the end, like we will cover whatever is relevant to the space, and BSC was definitely relevant. Like people were leaving Ethereum to go there, even if it's not DeFi. So yeah, I mean that just tells you we really hold like our bags do not reflect like our coverage. Like there's no like nothing other than kind of covering the space that's like motivating what we write about.
I absolutely love that. And well, given you guys are covering in an unbiased manner the DeFi space, and you have looked at a lot of the projects, I imagine by now, I'm a beginner. I'm trying to get into DeFi. Which would be the starting project you would recommend for me to start using? Say I want to start earning or I want to borrow. What is the go-to project for a newbie in the space right now?
So for a newbie, first thing I think is just to get in the door, and I think you need to buy ETH to just to pay for transactions, which are very high right now. So you'll have to go to your centralized exchange, buy ETH there, and then download a non-custodial wallet, which is the way that you can communicate with decentralized finance applications. The most popular one is MetaMask. So you'll download MetaMask and then transfer your ETH from your centralized exchange to your MetaMask. And with that, you're ready and able to start interacting with any DeFi application. And I really recommend anyone to do this, because that's when you really get why this thing is just so much better than traditional finance. Just the experience of your wallet automatically connecting to a DeFi app without you having to use any like login and password or email or give out any of your information. Like you go to Uniswap, and the this decentralized exchange will automatically know how much tokens you hold and what you can trade, and without having any human behind it. Like you're interacting directly with smart contracts and computer code. Um, so that's a very kind of like magical experience. So um, for us a beginner, I would recommend using Uniswap first. And so uh, trying something like uh, exchanging your ETH for DAI, or for USDC, or some stable coin, um, and then depositing that stable coin in a lending platform. I think, and with that, you'll start earning interest on a dollar-based asset. I think that to start is pretty cool. It's, to me, like the use case that can be more widely used by anyone. Just a dollar-based savings account that you can have in a couple of seconds without asking anyone permission, without giving out your information. And you can just do that today if you have an internet connection. So I think that's pretty cool. And then you can go to something like Yearn, which is like this crazy protocol that automates investment for you, and you can put your money or your tokens in different trading strategies, and it will direct your tokens to whatever DeFi protocol is giving you the best yield. So to me, like this is a good way to use DeFi for a beginner. Just a way to put some of your savings and have like the money robots take care of them.
It really, the magical experience part describes it really well. And I think there's like a second magical part where you've used DeFi and then you have to go use your bank for something. You have to get a loan, or you have to change some detail, and you go through that process, and then you think back on what you go through to interact with DeFi. I mean, that's why I've moved actually over 90% of my net worth now. It's just decentralized, like on the internet. Like, why would I use a bank right now when we have this built, and so many of them have been audited by reputable companies? There's like USDC is completely backed. It's not like back when we had Tether, where there's some uncertainty around how legit it is, although personally I think most of it's FUD. But yeah, so we've gotten to this point where we can comfortably put that much of our wealth on the internet, and it's amazing. It's why DeFi is incredible. And it's infrastructure shifting. And something we spoke about before the podcast that I'd love to bring up now that also is infrastructure shifting is the NFT space. Because what DeFi's done for finance, NFTs sort of doing for artists now and the entire collectible space. Do you have any thoughts on the current NFT situation with art pieces selling for, what, $6.6 million?
Hmm. The NFT space just blows my mind. I think it's really hard to kind of grasp what it is, why it's taking off like it has. I think what's kind of the underlying idea behind NFTs is that for the first time, um, you can actually own content on the internet. Before, music or art could be infinitely reproduced, and the artist behind it wouldn't ever see the benefits from that. um, NFTs now changes that, and gives artists a way to connect directly with their audience without having a record label or a gallery in between to take a cut. They can directly sell these tokens to their audience. And on the one hand, on the side of the fans and the audience, you can have uh, you can also benefit from supporting an artist very early on in their career. And the artist can benefit more fully from their own creations, and just have a way of directly connecting with their fans. So I mean, that's just breaking intermediaries, and really revolutionary. And the way that this is happening is because of this new token standard, which is a way to verify ownership with a unique token. So I think kind of the important difference from something like owning an NFT than owning like Bitcoin and Ether or ERC20 tokens is that those tokens are interchangeable, and like one ERC20 is the same as the other ERC20 of its kind. Like you can't distinguish between um, one uni token from another uni token. But that's not the case with NFTs, because there you can create actually unique tokens that are connected to unique art pieces or music pieces or creations. So that's what's enabling this kind of explosion of value. And I think with everything that's kind of emerging, people will get ahead of the fundamentals. Like expectations will get ahead of reality, because like you realize what's happening and you go, oh my god, like this is changing the world. And you like say, oh, this is worth $1 million, and maybe it really isn't. But I think that's just how markets react. And in the same way that in 2017, maybe 1400 was too much for ETH relative to its fundamentals, but then the fundamentals have caught up, and now it's actually worth more than that. I think maybe we'll start to see the same with NFTs. Like maybe right now people are getting ahead of like the actual value that's being created with NFTs. um, but I think kind of the excitement is true. Like there's a reason to be excited about this kind of like paradigm shifting idea.
Well, that was a very all-encompassing answer from what they are, what the current trend is, where it's going to go, why you should be cautiously optimistic. Camila, that was a perfect response, and I couldn't agree more with you, especially just on a macro level. As we move more towards decentralizing everything and getting rid of intermediaries, we get more towards the point of automating things, and then what's left? Creativity. So the ability to be able to own things like that, the one thing that it's going to be very hard to replicate and we're never going to get rid of. NFTs excite me even more when we look at a 10 to 20 year time frame as well. Camila, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure everyone who's been listening to this episode will definitely check out the Infinite Machine and the Defiant. Is there anything you'd like to leave our listeners with before we finish this episode?
I just like to encourage everyone to test these things out. I mean, they look weird and scary at the beginning, but once you try them out, I don't think you can ever go back to your regular bank. So yeah, just experiment and join us here in the colorful side.
Oh, what a fantastic note to end it on. Meditators, that is everything from us for another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like us to continue bringing you fascinating people from across the world, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you like to listen to these podcasts, and share the episode with a friend. If you have feedback or an idea for a potential guest, reach out to me on Twitter at 𝐉𝐸𝐴𝐾, and do not forget we write a newsletter covering all important topics in crypto and traditional markets. We send it out 3 times a week. The Market Meditations newsletter. You also get early access to these episodes, and you get transcripts and extra notes as well, so make sure to subscribe there as well.